for both Miyazaki and Takahata, yet you chose to step away from those huge talents and make your own career on your own terms. That was a very brave movement. Can you tell us why that was?
It was created with extremely low budget, and it didn't really, the environment was very challenging as well for them to work on, but they needed to really complete the project. So
I got invited to Hyper Japan. Thank you so much, Hyper Japan. And usually when I get invited to these events, thankfully because of this podcast, I've been lucky to get invited to different anime conventions. I usually get invited as a creator. But this time, I got invited as a press. I got the press pass, and I don't know, I thought it would maybe just be the same. You know, creators obviously go, maybe create content, press maybe just go and cover it. Specific things and write it as a kind of like an article or blog or so on and so forth. But I was pleasantly surprised that press has almost like, I don't know, maybe it's just Hyper Japan, but it has another element into it that you can essentially, I know this sounds dumb, like in terms of, you're going to say, duh, Edward, but you get to interview, or you get to choose who you interview based on the guests that are coming to the event. So I got the opportunity to interview, and I'll share these videos later, but I got the opportunity to interview a few industry big hitters, such as Higuchi, who did the Attack on Titan ending song, amazing, and also one of the most legendary figures in the anime space, Mahiro Maeda. And this is what I'm going to be reacting to today. So if you're here for the first time or you're a returning visitor, my name is Ed. This is Suuuper Anime Podcast. We get the biggest guests from the animation industries. We're talking directors. So if you're new here, very quickly, my name is Ed. This is the Suuuper Anime Podcast, where we bring you the biggest guest in terms of directors, content creators, artists, influencers, and also producers, and also a splash of comedy. So this is the first reaction video we've done. We've done some podcast reaction on the audio side of things, but not on the video. So I'm excited to do this. Let us know in the comment section if you enjoy this format. So Mahiro Maeda, he's known for a breadth of different stuff. Like the guy, when we say legend, I think that's overused. But in this instance, he really is one of the top tier animation directors to come out of Japan. He's worked on things like Evangelion, where he's directed, been an influential figure in terms of how the story was animated. He's worked on things like Animatrix. For those who don't know Animatrix, please go look it up. Think of The Matrix but animated. I know it sounds obvious, but honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever seen. I had it on DVD. Yes, I'm that old. But I had it on DVD, and I encourage you guys to, any way you can find it, go and watch the Animatrix. It's insane. It's actually sensational. He's worked on Porco Rosso, a Ghibli movie, Castle in the Sky. He's actually even designed one of the weapons on Samurai Champloo. And he's also worked on other stuff outside of animation, such as Mad Max. Like, when we get into the reaction video, you're going to hear some more of his accolades, but the guy is truly a sensation. And the fact that I got to sit down with him and have an interview, again, thank you so much for Hyper Japan for organizing this. It was actually brilliant. The clip you're going to see first is one of a larger interview where Helen McCarthy, who's also a legend in her own right, she's going to basically read her accolades as well, but she's one of the first writers to bring Japanese animation into the UK regarding publishing a specific editorials around Japanese and manga animation. She's one of the first writers to do so, and she's since been writing so many different books around Japanese animation and Japanese culture. So she's an accomplished woman when it comes to things of the anime and animation nature. She also has been on a podcast, so I'll just leave a little screen grab here. Unfortunately, I don't have that in video, but she was insane in terms of the knowledge, insights she dropped regarding animation industry, the future of anime. So if you want to listen to that, if you're going on a run, jog, walk, whatever it may be, you got some time, I definitely would encourage that. I'll leave a link in the description notes as well, just so you can link to that episode and have a listen. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's hear the interview, the wider interview. Before then, we go to the small interview, which was a small panel of press where we got to speak to Mahiro Maeda and his translator. That is Helen McCarthy. And there is Mahiro Maeda-san. The lady with him is a translator. And by the way, she is an amazing translator. So, as mentioned, this is more so kind of the big forum where it was a planned event where the audience could come and listen to the interview. But in the later session, I'll showcase just a small clip of just a small clip of that interview. Unfortunately, we could record, but it was a bit weird me holding my phone in front of the translator Mahiro. So I just didn't want to, again, with the whole politeness culture and stuff like that, I didn't want to just hold my phone there in front of people's faces, especially when I was sitting in the front row. So I did record it just a smidget. So I just wanted to show you the difference and the contrast between this venue and then the press office, where it was very much an intimate setting. And this lady, the translator, was absolutely incredible. Like I was waffling like I'm doing now on and on regarding my questions, as well as the other press people in the room, but she was able to succinctly deliver what our questions were to him and also reply back succinctly what he had to say in Japanese.
I am to be here. Are you all excited to be here? Yeah! Of course we are. Because it is such a privilege, such an enormous privilege, and no, my computer does not want to shut down, to be here with Maeda-san. I'm Helen McCarthy, and so I'm going to talk about me first, naturally. I wrote the first book in English on Japanese animation and just never stopped. And I have 2 more coming out next year. But I've been a fan of Mr. Maeda's since I saw, in the late 1980s, Blue Submarine No. 6, which is a really remarkable piece of work, a 4-part video series, but really like a coherent movie and so innovative. And then, 2004, he made my favorite of his works, Gankutsuo, the Count of Monte Cristo, which I love for so many reasons. The atmospheric color design, the wonderful pacing of the reimagined story, and the music of Jean-Jacques Burnel, that most of you know better as one of the Stranglers. So today, what I'm hoping for, apart from the pleasure of talking to Mr. Maeda, is just giving you a brief introduction and overview to Maeda, the director, the designer, the animator, but in particular the artist, because his wide-ranging talents are really astonishing. And I expect that quite a lot of you have seen Zatsu, Mahiro Maeda, the art book, on sale here, which is truly incredible. So if you haven't got one, call by the stand later and get it. We'll have pictures from the book up here from time to time. In the meantime...
My apologies as well, like I mentioned. Some of the angles, I'll be catching people's heads, back of the head, so apologies again for that.
And I'm going to sit down now, so I take the stage a bit less. I'm going to ask Mr. Maeda if he will show us a project that we have to amuse you and entertain you, and also mean he has something to do while I'm talking, which is to make a drawing here live on stage in front of you all. Now, even though he's only been in the country since yesterday morning, he's already made a couple of beautiful drawings since he came here. And perhaps he'll show those to you, and also show you, just so you know that this isn't pre-prepared, a blank piece of card on which he is going to draw. So, Mr. Maeda, would you show us your drawings, please? I understand that he's going to show us a piece of card on which he's going to draw.
Hi.
Ah, beautiful. Those are gorgeous. And Mr. Maeda is going to continue drawing while we talk.
The camera again doesn't justify what I saw in real life. That looks a bit blurry, but yeah, the guy's I don't need to say it, he's insanely talented.
Talk, and then at the end, we will see what he's achieved there.
So just so it's clear, he's going to start a new project and draw something. Well, I say start, but I think he started one, I think yesterday, and he's going to continue it. And whilst they're talking, I think you'll see, but basically when she's translating, he'll continue the project that he had initially started earlier. And then at the end, he's going to showcase what he's done.
So let's sit down and be comfortable.
Thank you.
Now, if I can start, Maeda-san,
Yes.
with a question that might seem a bit off the wall to start with, but it impressed me so much when I was looking through this book. And it's a question about how you approach Kaiju and Kami. And I can see that gods and monsters, both from Japanese folklore and from modern sources like Godzilla, Gamera, Kamen Rider, are something you understand well and you can express very clearly. And of course, as all our audience who are anime fans to a man and woman know, any artist born after the dropping of the atom bomb understands the idea of radioactive creatures or science-based mutations. So I wonder if you could tell us, how do you think those ideas have affected your work? And do you see Kaiju and Kami as integral in your art?
はい、自分の中でマイクあります。はい。動いてるかな？聞こえるかな？もしもし。
Okay, so he's going to start talking in Japanese. For this instance, I will just play him talking in Japanese, but moving forward, just because of time, I'll probably just cut out what he says in Japanese unless there's something pivotal or a reaction or something on the screen whilst he's talking that needs to be shared, then I'll keep the Japanese in. But yeah, just conscious that unless you do speak Japanese, you're not probably going to understand, and then you're going to have to wait for the translator. So where it fits, I'll just move to the translator. Where it fits, I'll just leave the Japanese in. But for the first instance, so you can hear his voice, I will leave the Japanese for now.
Can you hear us? Okay, you can. Okay.
はい、あ、聞こえた。出た。そうですね、日本っていう、ちょっと特殊な環境の国に生まれて、歴史でありますとか、そういった伝承みたいなもの、神話であったり、民話であったりっていうものにはずっと生まれた時から自然とそこにあるものとして関わってきたんですけども、自分の中では例えば怪獣であったり、アニメの中で描写される超自然的な力であったり、あるいは戦争であったり、核技術、核爆弾のようなものであったり、全て言ってみれば私たちの普段の幸せや生活を脅かしながらも、でも実は我々もその一部に取り込まれていて、拒否できない、抗えない力を持っているものだということはずっと思ってきました。
Yes, so this is something that I have thought of for quite a while. I was born in Japan. Japan in many ways is quite unique in its environment because of its history and the legacy. As you have mentioned, there is the folkloric element with nature and the relation between the human and the nature. It is something that I felt when I was even very small as well, this element of coexisting with nature. And this applies to Kaiju, and all the other elements that are often depicted within anime as well, supernaturals, wars, nuclear powers. So all those which are threat to our human lives and our everyday happy lives, but in some ways we are part of all that threat as well. But let me carry on. This is something that we have.
So in some ways, if I understand you, we can view Godzilla and Kaiju as nature challenging humanity to work within its principles rather than against it. Although they're huge threats to us as humans, they are just challenging us to work with nature.
はい、その通りですね。
Exactly, yes.
Ah,
その
Yes, exactly. So all those elements, they are threats to the nature. However, if we do consider the more of a macro view, they are part of the nature in the sense that we have been influenced by it. We have created some of them, but we have been influenced by all those with relation to the nature. So yes, everything is interconnected in some ways. We have been influenced by the reactions from them, all those supernatural powers. But another thing to mention is that you've touched on the folklore and legacy of Japan. They are in many ways rooted with the sense of fear Japanese people have lived throughout history. And that stems from the fact that we have been affected by many natural disasters, whether it be typhoons or volcanoes. So I try not to suppress that sense of fear when I'm creating projects, because I think it is part of the nature in some ways.
yes, I think that's very valid. And if we look at the work that you've done recently with your longtime colleague Hideaki Anno on films like Shin Gojira, Shin Ultraman, Shin Kamen Rider, and of course on Evangelion, that gives us a really clear idea of the actual physical power and physical potential of Kaiju versus Mecha, the dynamics of the physical powers and animal urges of Kaiju, and the human-made, human-driven Mecha. And I see echoes in your work of the late Yasuo Otsuka's insistence on observing and understanding movement of both mechanisms and bodies to express them properly. But rather than just assuming that you're following Otsuka, I'd like to ask, what was your main concern as an artist, as an animator, and as a director in approaching the conflicts of Kaiju and Mecha? And did you experience any particular problems in making the scenes work?
というよりは、より神話に出てくる巨人、北欧神話に出てくる巨人とかの存在に近いものだと思います。例えば
That is insane, right? That is, and they're gonna show it in. You'll see the color, but that is just insane.
僕らが影響を受けた「マジンガー Z」っていうタイトルがあるんですけど、そのネーミングから分かる通り、マシーンと魔人を引っ掛けた掛け言葉なんですね。そのことは結構象徴的だと思います。ですから自分の中で例えばそういう怪獣っていう空想上のクリーチャーと、例えばメカニクスですね、エヴァンゲリオンのような、愛犬ロボット、本当は人造人間っていう設定ではあるんですけども、そういうものが同じ空間に出てきて絡み合ったり対立したりっていうことは実はさほど違和感を感じてなくて、すんなり描きました。
Yes, in the Japanese animation history, there have been many depictions of mecha robots, as you have mentioned, but they are slightly different to the actual robotics that exist today. The technology have caught up that we are familiar with the robotics, but they're different what we have seen in animation, as you may well know. They are much closer to some things that we would see in the folkloric traditions or mystical figures. And another example that I can think of is when I was small, we watched this animation live action of Mazinger Z.
Yes.
And the name is it's a coinage between machine and Majin, which is almost like a genie in a bottle figure in Japanese. So Mazinger Z, it implies that it's not simply a machine, a robot. It's more there is an imaginary creature element within as well with Kaiju. And this applies to Evangelion as well. Yes, it is seen as mecha, but really it's in the actual setting it's more a man-made creature, cyborg. But to me, the two aren't really an opposing really elements. So I didn't really struggle so much when I was creating in either format.
See, and the fascinating thing looking at these images is that Godzilla looks more like a true dragon, and that turns your mecha into St. George. Now that's a really well-known image in Western mythology, St. George and the Dragon. but it puts your work into a long line of global culture images of knights fighting monsters.
Jeez, Helen is cooking. Yo, I'm telling you, man, she is incredible. Absolutely incredible. You know, I never thought about that link between St. George and the Dragon, but it makes perfect sense. Well, not perfect, but it's a nice synergy between the two regarding the Evangelion humanoid versus the Godzilla creature there. So I think Helen is right. And I think that this is something that it comes back to the point before in terms of being inspired. I think it says it in the Bible, and I think also Nas is quoted in one of his lyrics, like, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. And we take inspiration from things that have come before us. You know, one of the famous quotes is, the only reason why, and I'm butchering it, but the really reason why I can stand as tall is because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And that's just alluding to the people that come before you and have built that foundation for you to essentially climb even higher. And I think, you know, with the St. George and Dragon, that probably was something that influenced or was an unconscious element that came into his drawing, or it came into, you know, him doing this. And I think he even talks about, you know, that taking influence from that and other specific imagery as well, as it pertains to history. So I thought that was an excellent reference from Helen with regards to that. Also, put in the comments, chat, is Godzilla a monster, or he's a monster, but is he good or evil? Because I've had debates with a few friends of mine whether he's good or evil. I guess it depends on which Godzilla you're watching, but I'd love to know, is Godzilla good or evil? Love to see in the comments.
はいはいはいはい。そうですね。その通りですね。
No, exactly. I agree with you.
はい
Yeah.
その通りました。
Yes. So this particular image, I created this for a concert, actually, for the musicians' live performance. His name is Sagishi. He created the scores for both Evangelion and Godzilla as well, both unknown works. So they have decided to hold a concert combining the scores for both films. And so this was used as a key image for the concert. And I think, so Evangelion, I've touched on the fact that it's a man-made creature. I call it cyborg, but it's probably more like artificial humanoid, really, and a strange words, but that's how I would see it.
You know what I find interesting? I thought she's kind of like making, or she seemed nervous, but I think she's actually capturing the mannerisms, yeah, of Mahiro Maeda, which is insane as well. I think that's what she's doing, and if she is, that's insane.
And so it came natural to me to combine that artificial man-made figure with Kaiju monster, something that I have worked on before as well. It's and as you've touched on, I love St. George is not a myth or mythology per se, but I love that tale. So it came natural to me to combine the two elements, images. And there is a concept within waka, haiku in Japan, of honkadori, which is an adaptation or honoring the original to extend and providing your own interpretation of it. And this, to me, is honkadori.
That's wonderful. Shifting away a little bit from the kaiju to your own career, you have worked with so many of the greats in the anime industry on equal terms. You introduced Hideaki Anno to work with Hayao Miyazaki on Nausicaa. You worked for both Miyazaki and Takahata. You've worked with Shoji Kawamori. You've worked with Gainax, Gizaburo Sugi on that wonderful version of The Tale of Genji. Aim for the Top, Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. Yet you chose to step away from those huge talents and make your own career on your own terms. That was a very brave movement. Can you tell us why that was?
ある種の傲慢だと思います。
Yes. So when I was small, I've always wanted to work in anime, to become a figure like Hayao Miyazaki. That was my aim, really. But what that means is I wanted to become a director.
Yes.
I wanted to have a full control of what I do in terms of creations, to really decide and work on everything that I was going to create. But that really came from ego, really. I just thought that everything could be done by myself, regardless of my actual capability at the time. That wasn't really taken into consideration. But I had this unfounded confidence in my 20s and 30s. That's why I have chosen the path of going solo to work on my own projects.
I really find that very interesting, very introspective as well, saying that, he went on his own primarily because he wanted to, go his own way, but mostly also acknowledging that was his own ego. But I think, we've seen from the likes of the anime, Blue Lock, ego, while there is a book called Ego is the Enemy, I think ego in small doses can also be good, and more so in the sense of self-confidence, right? As Jadakiss says, I'm not cocky, but I'm confident. So when he tell me I'm the best, I take it as a compliment. And I think from his standpoint, it's like, why should I stand in someone's shadow? I've learned all I can. I know that if I want to do my own thing, I have to go my own way, because primarily everyone has their own style, right? And in order for you to adapt or build your own style, you're going to have to step out of someone else's shadow. Hence why he probably left Miyazaki, who is renowned for obviously all his great stuff on Ghibli. But, it's one of those things where he may not be able to have done the likes of the Evangelions and the Mad Maxes and so on and so forth, because he was, if he was still, working with Miyazaki or, working with other great animation directors and so on and so forth. So I respect that move, and I think it's a lesson for all of us, right? You're not necessarily going to be the best to begin with, or it might be a bit scary if you're going on your own, but primarily, and when I say your own, just more so your own way, of course you're going to hire people or bring people with you, but if you're confident in your own abilities in terms of what you want to do, I think there's no reason why you can't take that jump or that leap of faith. The worst thing can happen is that, you do maybe potentially land flat on your face, but more from a metaphorical standpoint, but primarily, at least you tried, right? At least you tried. And the experience of jumping, which might lead you to jump even more times with less fear and more frequency.
Right.
But it really was, it was the arrogance, really. You can call it of that.
But having realised those limitations and then worked to overcome them, do you feel those limitations actually helped you as an artist by challenging you?
今ここで皆さんの前に立ってないと思います。
No, exactly. I think you helped me greatly, definitely, because all the creators that you have mentioned, they have widely different styles and widely different production styles as well, and how they work. And creating animation is really a collaborative process. You need to orchestrate different people and how you work with those individuals as well. So it was wonderful to experience the different manufacturing styles and processes as well as part of one of the cog really within that production. So I think that chaotic nature of collaborating, it was great to experience that, but there are so many things that I could see and learn from as well. Really, if I hadn't experienced all those different styles when in my youth, I don't think I would be here in front of you talking about my work.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's very important. We in order to go, essentially you need to gather skills, right? So I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Dan Locke, and he was talking about skill stacking. I don't know if it was him particularly who came up with the concept, but skill stacking is essentially, gathering, as the name implies, gathering different bunch of skills, and some of them can be complementary, and the onus is to get complementary skills and essentially like stack it to a point where you have a skill set unique to yourself, which you can essentially take to different places. It could be transferable skills and so on and so forth. So from my understanding, from what he's just said, it's more so kind of, like you mentioned, it's a group thing when you're doing animation. He learned a lot of different skills within that setting when he was young. And then he was able to take those skill sets or skills that he had learned, apply his own kind of genius, as it were, and then, do his own thing. He's got his own studio as well. So I think that's very important. I'm not saying you can't do it at the beginning. It's probably going to be harder to build that plane when you jump off the cliff, as it were, when you don't have your own, when you haven't built the skills on, I guess, someone else's plane, which is essentially fully developed. Now you're just jumping off without having a framework, as it were. Whilst when you're in the industry, or if you have experience, you have that framework to start with when you jump off. I don't know why I'm calling this jump, but let's go with it. When you jump off the cliff, as it were. So I think it's very important that whilst it's not necessarily needed, I wouldn't even say you're more likely to be successful, because we've seen a lot of people do it without doing that. But there is probably a greater degree of success with those who have essentially gathered the skills versus those who haven't, in terms of the ratio. But it's not to say that you can't start a business or start a whatever it may be, venture without the skills.
Very interesting, because you also work with so many major figures in film and music outside Japan. You've worked with the Wachowski sisters on The Animatrix. You've worked with Jean-Jacques Burnel. You've worked with Quentin Tarantino on Kill Bill, George Miller on Mad Max Furiosa, Sid Mead on Turn A Gundam. Are there any differences working with an overseas director on a project rather than working within anime in Japan?
Excellent question. Hey, go on, Helen.
そうですね。非常に同じ底力みたいなものはだいぶ違うなと思います。
There are very familiar elements as well, which are very close to the Japanese styles. Just as a process of animation making, so the animator creator would think of what they want to create in their head, they imagine it, and then try and bring that into reality to be shared with the audience. And then the actions needs to kind of like, there needs to have a process in order to bring that into reality. So I think that very simplistic style, simple mechanics of how to create anime is really the same, because we are all humans, we operate in the same way. So it doesn't really matter which country you're from, really, within that. However, what I found to be a big difference is the environment and what that brings to the creative process. For example, Japanese animation was really confined to the Japanese market for a very long time. What that means is that there was a strict limit to the budget that was available, but also the scale of the teams and also the production timeline as well. There were strong limits to all those. However, when I worked with the overseas international markets, what I found was that a lot of the creatives had this creative first mentality. They really didn't have that much compromise in terms of what in order to achieve what they had in their head, they weren't willing to lower the budget or cut the timeline short, and also the size of the team as well. I've seen that with George Miller, and one of the examples that you have mentioned. There have been many challenges within the production process as well, that they needed to refinance the project a few times. But his tenacity really impressed me, because he really, there was no way that he was going to give up. So that's, but the ability to do so is very much different. It's specific to the international market.
That's really interesting, because it goes to one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Thinking about Blue Submarine number 6, where you were so proactive, even though CGI had hardly been used, you used CGI. You've always been attuned to what's going on in our times and how to move with those things. But there's a major challenge coming to the anime industry now. It's gone global, it's gone international, but AI is raising its head.
Here we go. The AI conversation. And it's funny. This is something that I have asked people. I say people. This is something I've asked directors and animators who've come on the podcast about AI. And some of them like it, some of them don't. I think it's in its obviously infancy regarding what it's going to do to the industry, how it's going to affect the industry. But I think it's something that will definitely impact the animation industry. Whether it be good or bad is yet to be seen. I personally think it's a tool to be used to enhance animation. But as you'll hear, I think it's definitely something that there needs to be some governance and some care or duty of care taken when using AI.
And creators are having to deal with the idea that not only their past work, but their future work may be impacted. So how do you view that?
はい、と思います。
I am interested in AI, actually, personally, and how it's going to affect our industry as well. It's really, so we are, in our studio, we are utilizing AI as an experiment as well. But the current situation is that if it's a longer format content, there are still discrepancies. We can't really fully create something with the AI alone. However, in a very not so distant future, AI will overcome those challenges probably to create something a lot more cohesive as a creation. But I've touched on the budget constraints and the limits that we all have. So mainly for that reason, in the future, AI will probably overtake some of the responsibilities that the human animators were taking on earlier on. But so I think it is becoming so. What I see is that the industry itself become very polarized in the future in two different dimensions really. And one is I think the individually crafted artisanal format of anime will still probably remain to be to be enjoyed as an artwork. But what we have been talking about, so Evangelion, all those big scale, internationally streamed, enjoyed, consumed, those kind of bigger works, we would probably be using AI in those animation as well.
その CGI の登場は
So similar things happened when CGI came into the mainstream creative work. It really added the tools that we could use as an animator. So I think something similar would hopefully happen with AI as well. But what is at the core of animation is the emotions, the emotional influences that the anime has, but also the emotion that is received and enjoyed by the audience members as well. So I don't think that core would not change. Yes, AI might take more of a roles within the anime creation, and they might become AGI. But I think fundamentally, human audiences would like to see anime that is created by humans as well at the core of that emotional link and relationship. So
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that AI is getting to a place where we won't be able to tell the difference at times. I saw a Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball content which was created with AI, and it showed it, I think it was a game, I can't remember, and it showed it in relation to what anime or the game designers had made. And to be honest, unless someone told me it was AI, I couldn't tell the difference. Maybe animation is different, but we're getting to a point where we might not be able to tell the difference. And I think maybe there's some ethical due diligence for these creators or these companies, and I think they should, to be honest, say this is created by AI. But will we care if it looks the same? Will we care if we're getting, maybe not JJK, but, Solo Leveling in terms of wait until what is it now, 2029 or something? I can't remember, 2026. Will we care if we're getting Solo Leveling on a much frequent basis? so long as it's not impacting people's well-being, mental health, I guess the major impact will be the jobs. And I think that's for a separate session regarding AI and jobs, because just like we saw in the industrial revolution, just like we saw with the internet in Web 2.0, I think we all have to upskill. We all have to essentially upskill our trade, upskill where we are in terms of AI, in terms of learning about AI, because fundamentally it will take some jobs, but it will create more jobs, is what I'm hearing. And whether it's true or not is yet to be seen. But, you know, it might create more jobs. And if that does create more jobs, we essentially need to upskill ourselves to, you know, do those jobs. And I think that's the same with animation, right? So it might take some, I guess, laborious animation jobs, as it were, which are more so entry level. And if that's the case, you know, it gives those who are very skilled and well versed, or those who are coming in from entry level, more kind of talent space to be more innovative, right? So if you are a seasoned veteran, or whether you're new and you can come with some new innovations and not, you know, do the kind of laborious work, which I appreciate needs to be done, builds character, as it were. But if you can, you know, skip to the fun part, or skip to the kind of like innovation and so on and so forth, I think all for the win for that. So we'll see what time tells. But I think let me know if you think it matters to you. I know I've asked you a lot of let me knows, but let me know if you think AI matters to you in terms of seeing an animation. If it looks the same, you can't tell the difference, because I know people were, you know, angry about CGI. And now people don't really care because, you know, unless it's really badly done, like the Berserk one, unfortunately, people don't necessarily really care about CGI. It's been used in Naruto so well that some people don't even realize it's in Naruto, for example. So I think the same with AI. It becomes a blend of AI and animators, or it might be full AI. But I think if you can't tell the difference, I don't necessarily think people will really care. Let me know in the comments below.
So I hope that AI would not take away the roles of human animators, animation creators, and it really would hopefully enhance the process of it.
Well, that brings me on to something I really want to talk about, which is Evangelion. But before that, could I ask you, Maeda-san, would you be willing to show us your drawing, how it's progressing?
すみません。まだ全然進んでないです。
No, I haven't really, they haven't added so much, unfortunately.
Well, I've kept you talking.
はいはい。
But let me talk now about Evangelion, because that is a show that arouses huge emotions all over the world, wherever it's seen. Why do you think Evangelion has had such a powerful impact on anime that's lasted so long?
なんでしょうね。なんか自分の位置から観察していると思うのは、そのエヴァンゲリオンが最初に作られた90年代後半なんですけれども、その時代性が大きく影響していると思います。その当時日本は空前の繁栄の後に非常に経済が落ち込んで、それまではみんなが頭がすっからかんになってですね、考えていなかったさまざまな問題が表面に出てきてですね、で例えばその経済の低迷でいろんなことがうまくいかないっていうのもそうですし、大きな会社が潰れてしまったりとか、あと大きな地震とかもありました。地震が都市部で襲って大きな被害が出て人々に不安を与えたこともあり、あと例えばテロですね、宗教テロという大きな事件もあったりして、で非常にその世紀末である、もうすぐ1999年がやってくるっていう、はっきり言葉にはしないんだけれども、ぼんやりとした不安、大きな不安のようなものを若い人たちが漠然と抱えていたところに、そのエヴァンゲリオンというその選ばれた少年少女たちが大人たちの思惑で無理やりそのプロジェクトにはめ込まれて、で大人たちもよくわからない謎のやってくる運命づけられたような脅威に対して立ち向かわなきゃいけない。不 不安は消えないで、ティーンエイジャーですから自分のリアルな生々しい不安のことも抱えている。さらにその生き死にをかけた戦いにも挑まなきゃいけない。とにかくその追い込まれていくっていうことを一生懸命書いた作品だと思うんですけど、そのことは実際その当時それを作っていたスタッフの状況とも重なってまして、非常にローバジェットで厳しい環境の中でそれでも彼は作らなくてはいけなかった。その真摯さですね、そのことが、作品の物語世界にフィードバックされて、ものすごくその絵空事なんですけど嘘じゃない生々しさを生んだんだと思います。それがたくさんのティーンエイジャーやそれを超えた大人も含めてたくさんの人の心を掴んだんではないかなと。それが今まで続いているそもそもの大元の根源ではないかと思っています。
I think it is a lot to do with the time it was released. So Evangelion was released in the late 1990s, and it really fitted into what was happening at the time. So Japan, as you know, has experienced an economic bubble, really, a rapid growth, and up until the 1980s.
Yes.
And then the economic bubble bursted in the 90s. So almost a decade before Evangelion was released, there was an economic stagnation.
Yes.
So a lot of the problems that people didn't think about beforehand surfaced around that time. So there were lots of incidences that really affected with that as well. Large corporations went bankrupt. Many people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And there was a big earthquake as well that affected in the urban area, and also religious terrorism as well, which affected many people in Tokyo metropolitan area and beyond. So I think people were very much aware that we were getting close to the end of the century. There was this sense that yes, 1999 was about to come. We're not yet sure what was about to happen. There was an overhanging fear as well as the anxiety of the youth. And Evangelion's narrative, as you know, it's centered around that fear of the teenagers, those selected youth that have been selected by the adults to really, for this work and projects that they really had no control over. So the fear of the youth, boys and girls, as well as the adults as well. Adults really have this sense of they are within this fate of there's something that they cannot change. And
So the people that you just saw walk in, I think because the conversation was running over time, they just came to notify Helen that you have 5 minutes or so on and so forth. But I think what was funny, what you will see, is they couldn't get her attention. So I moved the camera just so it wasn't a distraction, but they were scrambling to try and get her attention just so she could make sure that she finishes the interview on time, because obviously there was another performance that was coming up.
all those, they were trapped into fighting for something that they did not choose. And that really fitted right into what was happening at the time. Plus, I think the staff members were experiencing something similar as well in the production team. It was created with extremely low budget, and it didn't really, the environment was very challenging as well for them to work on, but they needed to really complete the project. So what we ended up creating was something fictional, but not rooted in lies. The emotions were real. So I think that resonated with many viewers at the time. But that's why it had the lasting effect for the times to come.
And that goes back to what you were saying about AI, that people will always want to watch stories with a human emotion. It was the emotional content of Evangelion that made it so powerful.
I think so, yeah. Yes, what I anticipate in regards to AI is that I think they will become even more skilled at mimicking human emotions. Really, it is going to do very. They would be able to mimic very, very well in a close future, because in human relationships we need to meet in person, to look at each other's faces in order to really express our emotions. But at the end of the day, we don't know what the other person is thinking as well. So that logic would apply with AI as well. They would become a lot friendlier and more amiable figure to us, because we won't be able to tell exactly what their true intentions are. And because contents like Evangelion, other great produced works exist in the world, they'd be able to learn about their narratives, how it impacts emotions. So I'm sure they would be able to create something that is very moving. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if the humans would be able to tell. I hope they'd be able to tell what is real, what is created by humans or not. But it is yet to be seen, really.
Yes, that's a very interesting idea, and it makes the future very exciting that we're going to have these new things to anticipate and to explore.
そうですね。だから敵対するというよりは協調して一緒にその手助けをしてもらいながらやっていくというのが望ましい未来じゃないかとは思います。
Exactly, but that's why I don't want to view AI as the enemy. I think I want to view it as a collaborative partner that would assist what we are trying to do.
Well, that makes it sound very interesting, and unfortunately, although I have many questions to ask Maeda-san, I've been told that we must finish now to let someone else have their stage. So the audience, I know, could go on listening to you for ages, couldn't you? You really do this. Thank you, Mr. Maeda, for being here and speaking to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You for such an interesting talk. And please show us how far you've got.
Just now. まだね、60% ぐらいだと思うんで。
Yes, I would say this is 60% complete, really, at this stage.
Thank you all for being here. I have had the best time. Thank you, Mr. Maeda. Thank you, Kurosawa-san, for translating. I think a big hand for Mr. Maeda is called for.
Yeah, that was it. So look, massive shout out to Helen for doing this interview. I thought she conducted it superbly. Great questions, great insights into those questions from Mahiro Maeda as well, in terms of like the future of AI, his career, the industry, how he came up with the concepts of the kaiji and the monsters, the difference between East and West. I thought there was a lot of breadth in that interview regarding Helen and Mahiro Maeda. And of course, amazing work by the translator. So fantastic job all around. In terms of the actual drawing, I can show you the final piece. As you can see here, this was the final piece. And this is more so the intimate setting that we, the press, had with Mahiro Maeda himself. So we were very fortunate to get this opportunity to speak with him in a very close, intimate setting. I asked him a few questions such as, what are the 3 traits he would take or give advice to regarding being an animator? And he said, never give up, stay alive, and enjoy. And I thought that was quite nice regarding his response. Never give up, I think, is quite self-explanatory. I think staying alive with response to, it might seem mundane what you're doing, it might seem boring, it might seem tedious, but keep your work alive, keep your motivation, keep your spirit alive, keep the consistency. They say success is boring, and I completely agree with that, because it's the same thing over and over and over again, and that can seem mundane, but stay alive, keep going, and your dreams, or in this case being an animator, will come to fruition. There were other great questions as well asked by different people in the press. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, whilst we were allowed to record for that particular session, the other sessions we weren't, but for that particular session we were allowed to record. But it's just, and you can see the video right here, I'm literally right in the front with the camera right in his face, and I just felt some type of way to do that for the whole interview. Given that I had the one with Helen, I thought that would be enough. So apologies that, I couldn't show that one, but hopefully you enjoyed the Helen one, and hopefully you enjoyed this reaction video. As I mentioned, it's my first one, so if you're still here, please do press subscribe. Please like the video. We have some more reaction video coming from Hyper Japan, including, as I mentioned, Higuchi, the person who sang the amazing Attack on Titan, as well as done amazing other great works as well regarding her discography. In terms of her music, she's an incredible pianist, and I'll be showcasing that as well. I did again interview her specifically, but that was, again, we couldn't record, but I might play some audio clips from that specific interview because there was some really interesting insights regarding her music from that. So thank you so much. Till next time, peace.